And we are live.
E aí, pessoal, meu nome é Fernando Guerreiro e sejam bem-vindos a mais um episódio da nova série Drift, como pessoas arriscam para criar uma nova forma inovadora de ver o mundo. O Drift é uma série do Vortex, que é uma organização que tem como objetivo conectar e empoderar futuros empreendedores, inspirando a mudança. Se você ainda não está inscrito aqui no canal do Vortex, aproveita para se inscrever. Nós temos vídeos sobre ecossistemas e pessoas muito legais desses ecossistemas em 3 idiomas: português, espanhol e inglés. Ahora en español. Hola, mi nombre es Fernando Guerreiro y ahora estamos empezando el tercer episodio de Drifty. Esta es una serie de lives sobre cómo grandes personas arriesgaron-se para crear una nueva realidad de innovación en el mundo. Esta es una iniciativa del Vortex. Vortex es una organización fundada por 7 estudiantes, emprendedores de diferentes universidades brasileñas, que tiene como objetivo conectar y empoderar los futuros emprendedores, inspirando el cambio. Inscríbase en el canal del Vortex para conocer muchos ecosistemas de emprendedores de todo el mundo. Tendremos episodios en 3 lenguas: inglés, español y portugués. Now in English, hi, my name is Fernando, and now we are starting the third episode of Drifty. Drifty is a project to tell how great people took risk and cleared the way for innovative minds. That is a Vortex project. Vortex is a national entrepreneurship organization founded by 7 young Brazilian entrepreneurs from Southwest colleges that aims to connect and empower university entrepreneurs from across the country to collaborate and create change. On Vortex channel, we have a lot of episodes about entrepreneur ecosystem in 3 languages: Portuguese, Spanish, and English. Subscribing our channel to show everything. Ingrid, you can start your presentation, please.
Okay, hello everyone. Nice to meet you all. My name is Ingrid Diaz. I'm a chemical engineering undergraduate at the University of São Paulo here in Brazil. And today we have a very special guest all the way from Norway, is Tarjei Kristiansen. Tarjei would love to know a little bit of yourself.
Yes, I'm Norwegian. I live here in Denmark, Aarhus, second largest city in Denmark. I work with the energy market. I also worked in Brazil, and lived in Rio 1 year, working with the electricity market. I'm also working with the Brazilian power market here in Denmark.
So I will start with the first question for you, Tarjei.
Yes.
How do startups in your nation, in Denmark? And if you want to talk about the Norwegian too, I think it's good.
Yeah, I think there's like, in this city I'm living here in Denmark, there are actually several startups in the area of energy trading. There's like 8-9 startups coming out of the company I'm working for. There was one guy who founded this company in 2004, and it's been very successful, and it's been acquired by a large energy company, and many people want to start their own business. But I think like in Norway, the focus there is like Norway is very wealthy on oil and gas and natural resources. They want in the future to move away from this to technology, to other areas, so they need to diversify. And what's popular nowadays is technology. Like Oslo is a big scene for startups, and also see a lot of like clean energy solar cell companies starting up. And also I think the most famous startup is Kahoot. If you heard about that, I think it's education technology. It's a Norwegian company. So that's among the most famous companies. But I think in general about Norway and education, it's like a country with like very good educational systems. So it's basically free to go to university, so people are highly skilled. There's low unemployment. It's relatively easy to start a company. You can have get funding to start a company, and there are accelerators and incubators. And yeah, we have a high standard of living in Norway, so people don't worry about getting food, those things. So they have energy to think about starting a business. and there's high tech skills and many women work. So there's like good diversity in the workforce. Yeah, and Norway is among the richest countries in the world, so we can afford to spend some money on startups, I think.
Well, that's very interesting to hear, Tarjei. I never knew about those topics in Norway, especially when you talked about clean techs. I remember you saying about natural resources, and Norway is very nominated for its technology over energy, right? Energy in general. And I would like to know a little bit more how government encourages young people to do businesses, open businesses or open clean techs. Now that you mentioned it, I'm very, excited to hear more about it.
Yeah, so they encourage people to apply for stipend or funding. That's one way, but also at the university they have studies where you can do entrepreneurial skills or get those skills by studying. So they encourage students to take those courses. So I think that's the most important way they encourage that. And I would say there is also like a new kind of stock exchange in Norway where there's been a lot of companies doing initial public offerings, also known as IPOs. So it's been maybe 30 new companies put on the stock exchange this year. So it's one way you can get funding, like you basically sell your stock on the stock market there and you get money so you can continue developing the companies. And those companies going live this year have been many in hydrogen. So hydrogen is a new clean companies in the area of sea farming. Like Norway has a lot of offshore or like outside the coast, salmon, cod, those things. So that's also popular.
It's so interesting. I have one question about your mental preview. How is the key difference in Danish and Norwegian education that affect this energy and this technological startups in these countries?
Could you repeat the question? I didn't understand completely.
All right. How is the key difference in Danish education and in Norwegian education than Brazil? And why and how and why these affect the startups and the technological sector?
Yeah, the key difference between Norway and Denmark in educational system, I don't think it's so big. It's fairly similar. It's basically free to go to university. You need to pay for your textbooks and your accommodation, but to study at the university, it's free. And of course, you can do more practical studies like engineering, or you can do more theoretical. So I don't think it's like a set way to be an entrepreneur. It's more about people having ideas, coming up with ideas. But generally speaking, it's a good educational system, and I guess that's something Brazil has to work on to develop the educational system, attract, let's say, good teachers, professor, like people that inspire students to grow their own business.
Absolutely, Tarjei. We completely agree with that statement that you put about Brazilian education. And now I'd like to dive a little deeper into, it can be Norwegian or Danish, like you're familiar with both, am I right? Unique businesses only found in Denmark or Norway in general.
Yeah, I think Norway, probably the sea farming, salmon and cod, those are quite unique businesses. In Denmark, I think they're known for wind power. So they have a large producers of windmills here in Denmark. So that's a quite big industry here. They were early to put a lot of wind power in their energy system. So they have long experience with this. So I think that's pretty unique. Of course, Norway has a long history with oil and gas, but the big oil companies nowadays, they want to move away from oil and gas to clean energy. And there's going to be a lot of investments in Europe. There's put away money for investments in clean energy in Europe as a part of the stimulus after coronavirus. And probably the same thing will happen if we get the new president in the US, Joe Biden. Then it could happen that we get a lot of investments in renewable energy. So I think I see some similarities with Norway and Brazil. Norway and Brazil has both a lot of hydropower, clean energy, and there's a lot of interest of investments in clean energy in Brazil, solar and power, in addition to the wind power. And you have a huge potential there to grow those areas there. So I say that could be like a very interesting area for startups also in Brazil. And there's a lot of things that need to be developed, like support the businesses, also maybe measure data, make systems to monitor the performance, all these kind of side support systems, just in addition to the power plants.
Tarjei, I know you. Tarjei, you know some cultures around the world and around Europe. I want to know, how is the Denmark culture?
The Denmark culture, it's very egalitarian, so it means like everyone is kind of similar. There's not a big difference between the wealthy and the poor, and it's a social democratic country. It's not like a big difference between people as in the US and maybe Brazil. And taxes are pretty high here, so we need to pay for all those free education and healthcare. And you feel pretty safe here, so you don't need to worry about walking in the streets late in the night. It's I think it's like a society where people have a lot of energy to think about starting a new business, coming up with new ideas.
And how does culture influence the business?
The culture?
Yes.
Yeah, so the management here in the companies is like very flat structure. So it's not like the boss is commanding you to do things. It's more, it tells you, gives you targets you need to meet, and then you manage yourself basically. It's up to you to do the work. It's no one monitoring that you basically do your work. You need to deliver your results. And then I think they try to stimulate people to take some extra courses or educate themselves, develop their skills. And yeah, sometimes they have a lot of brainstorming these things for ideas.
Well, great. I really like the way that you bring about the social democratic way that Denmark works, right? The way the government and politics work, and the way that the social structure is built in that way. Am I right? And now I would like to know a little bit about the population itself. How does the population accept the new businesses, the startups, and jobs like that, and like a new project from a startup or a new way of consumption? Do you have any examples of that? You mentioned about Kahoot, and it's very popular here in Brazil too. So I'd like to hear about that.
Yeah, how they accept. I think that's been a success, and it's also been brought on the stock exchange, and people made money investing in it. And I think it's used like widely in the universities and schools also in Norway. So I think people are happy with that story. It's like a tech company. So I think maybe one main difference between Norway and Denmark compared to, for example, the US and startups is probably like it's not so good here to fail. If you fail with a startup in the US, no one really cares if you fail with a startup because everyone tried and they failed, and you can try many times. here is a bit more stigmatized, so it's not viewed as good to fail in a startup. So I guess a little bit more pressure to perform, but there's still many startups going live.
Tarjei, in Brazil, we have a big difference in gender representation in high-level positions in the startups. In the 12 Brazilian unicorns, we have just one women in this position, in a high-level position. How many women have in the high positions in enterprises in Denmark?
Yeah, Norway and Denmark. I think like Norway has actually they're planning to put a law in place, so should be like 40% women as CEOs. So there are some guidelines, and there are CEOs of big companies in Norway, female CEOs, but it's not so common still yet. And I think probably even less in Denmark. Actually, the company I'm working for here now in Denmark has a female CEO. So we are among the fewer companies with a female CEO.
It's so good.
So it's developing, but it takes some time, and yeah.
And
yeah, it really takes some time.
Go on, Ingrid.
Can I? Oh, okay. But yeah, Tarjei, it really takes some time, and we are, looking forward to that, to make a more egalitarian place. And now I'd like, I think everyone knows that Norway has the highest IDH around the world, and Norway is very known about its technology and the best quality of living. Am I right?
Yeah.
And I'd like to know if other nations influence the Norwegian innovations or technology in some sort of way. You talked a lot about Norwegian being on the top notch over the technology, but is there any sector that Norwegian is actually learning from another country?
I think many look to US still, so there's a lot of people looking there. I also think Sweden has even more startups, especially tech, than Norway, so probably some people look there too. So I think those probably are among the most important countries they look to.
I have a problem in my mic.
No problem.
Tarjei, what are the 3 major keys that your nation, Denmark and Norwegian, use to success at their business?
What are the main ingredients to succeed?
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's a relatively open society. It's easy to do business. It's not as bureaucratic as in many other countries. For example, Brazil, you have a lot of laws you need to respect. It's more difficult, more bureaucratic. It takes more time. It's more digital here, so you can do a lot of things online. You don't need to go to the office to do this and that. It's probably easy to get highly skilled people here, and people want to work, are interested to work for startups. So that makes them more successful. And it's also, at least in Norway, I think it's easier to get funding for a startup because people are interested in investing in that. There are a lot of money lying around there, people with the funds to invest.
That's great, Tarjei. And now I'd like to ask you a more personal question. May I?
Yeah.
What inspires you? And who inspires you, if there's someone who does? And what do you do in difficult moments?
Inspire me. There can be many people. See some entrepreneurs like Elon Musk maybe over promise a bit, but yeah, he can be inspiring. He achieved a lot. And the second question was,
what do you do in difficult moments?
I try to do some exercise, let my chill out a bit, let my brain work and think how to overcome this problem, relax a bit, those things, and come back stronger, continue to work, not give up. Like, I think it's important to have a strong work ethic, so you not give up once you have some difficult times, because I guess, like, as an entrepreneur or startup, you need to go through many difficult times, so you should have like a vision where you want to be in the future, and you need to work hard to achieve that.
Tarjei, you said about the monetary funds in Norway and in Danish and Denmark. What other forms the government help the startups?
Yeah, I think one is this training, as I said, university, but I think you can also do courses like entrepreneurial school, like for people already working, professionals. And there are some meetups, clubs, basically, where people learn entrepreneurship.
And the government do challenges or some research challenges for the students and the undergraduates entrepreneur in something, or do their own enterprise?
How the training works, I think it's more, many times it can be developing a business plan, or it can be like a business case, how you, basically the steps you need to develop a business, doing the market research, etc. These things.
Well, it was very interesting to know about the clubs. Am I right? The government actually managed. The government looks forward to making clubs and meetups. Am I right?
Yeah, I'm not sure if all are organized by the government, but at least there are private parties organizing them.
Yeah, but there's something, right? And that's really interesting. And now I would like to know if there's any great advice young people should know when it comes to businesses journey, or your type of journey, when it comes to international views or something like that.
I think if you have an opportunity to work abroad or study abroad, it's great to learn new skills, try to learn new skills continuously, study and work abroad, not plan too far away, just take opportunities when they arise. I think that's my advice.
And Tarjei, how does the population accept the new business, like a new product for a startup or a new way of consumption? Do you have any examples of these new products or new startups?
And this city here where I'm working in Denmark, as I said, there are like 8-9 startups, and I think most of them have been profitable and they made money, and I think people like them. They bring tax revenues to the city, so they're actually bringing a lot of benefit to the city, like revenue, and employ people. So I think they like them. But of course, it depends on the products. If it's something that pollutes or it's not a popular product, it might be less popular. But these kind of tech companies or tech and IT companies, I think they're less less risky for society.
That's great. That's really good knowing about the Danish and Norwegian population, looking into how that product affects the environment. Am I right?
Yeah.
If it's toxic or a pollutant, that's very good. I really wish Brazilian society start to do that in some kind of way, because a lot of times we consume things that we don't even know how it came to us, or don't even know how it's made, and then we are doing bad for our environment, especially here in Brazil with our Amazon and Pantanal. Am I right?
Yeah.
And I'd
So-
like to. Oh no, go on, please.
I just saying nowadays, in terms of investments like this ESG, so environmental, social, and governance, is getting very important. So that the companies have to satisfy all these three criteria. So it will be like they need to be environmentally friendly, to be social conscious, so they're not taking care of the people that working there. And they need to have governance, meaning like as you mentioned, have female in the workforce, like care about ethics, those things. So this is becoming more and more important. Let's say the 5-10 next years is going to be very important.
Absolutely.
So I think like Brazil has a good starting point, at least on the environmental and part, and then they can work on the other S&G in the future.
Yes, absolutely. And now I would like to know, that's a question that I was really curious about when I went to Norway and Denmark, because government, the society in general encourages young people, young scientists, and young entrepreneurs, am I right, to do better for the country and for the world. And is there any type of innovative technology or innovative way of thinking that young entrepreneurs or young scientists put into Norwegian, like the government says, oh, can you do a research about this problem that we have here in the country, and can you solve it?
I think there's a lot of funding of, like, for example, PhD scholarships. They put a lot of money, both the government and also companies sponsor people to do like a PhD on a certain problem to solve it for the society. So it's going quite a lot of money on that, and I think also some master thesis. So they're try to do that, combine studies and solving important problems for the society.
Tarjei, what does the main markets like energy and salmon influencing in the nation technology?
Yeah, energy influence Norway, but there's a large industry around the oil and gas, like supply boats. This is out in the North Sea in Norway. It's like they need like very large ships with special equipment to support those platforms. There's a lot of people working in that business. And then for energy, we also have a lot of hydropower in Norway, so that many people working on this power plants and the planning of operation of hydropower plants and these things. So that's a huge industry to support. And for salmon, people working, the good thing about this sea farming, it's not only salmon, it can be cod also. It's basically all around the country. It's also in the north of Norway, in places where there live very few people. So it employs people in small cities and places, and it's remote, so it's spread out, and it's bringing like benefits to small cities.
Well, that's great. This is the first time actually that I literally heard about the salmon factory.
Yeah.
I've heard about it in some channels, Discovery and stuff, but I never knew that it had this magnitude over Norway. I always thought it was like something that was going under, but well, that's really great. And now, Tarjei, I remembered about seeing your education at Harvard in my school. Am I right?
Yeah, like a diploma, 1-year research fellowship there, during my PhD, correct?
Yeah, and you also have a PhD, am I right?
Yeah.
And I would like to know if a great lesson that you've seen from there, or you actually, when you went to Harvard and you were doing your PhD, what was the greatest lesson that you learned from that, and you can, tell young leaders around the world?
Yeah, it's a very exciting time. I think what I was impressed by being there is that the professors were very good. It's like very interesting lectures. It's very inspiring that the teachers to develop the students to learn. So I think that was impressive, and also that was like international environment, a lot of mix of people from all over the world mixed, so it's very good diversity. And you also had there at Harvard, I was mixing with people that studying at MIT and Harvard Business School, so it was like a mix of all these universities. MIT and Harvard is in the same city, and you have the business school, you have the public policy, etc. So I think it's a great opportunity to be there and learn from other people.
And do you have any particular advice to give the young leaders about the things that you've studied in your PhD, or you've seen when you have the culture shock around the MIT students and students all around the world? I believe that in that area, when you were studying in Harvard, in that city, there were a lot of young leaders, like promising leaders. Am I right?
Yeah, you had some, probably most of them were at the business school, so those are, yeah. But also I was at Kennedy School, so it's public policy. It can be like public leaders, yeah. And of course, I don't know when I was there who became like the future leaders, but there were like a lot of, say, lectures, seminars, several times a week from famous, could be president or someone speaking there to inspire students to become a future leader and educate them.
Tarjei, you mentioned about the diversity of people in Harvard. I will talk about other European countries.
Yeah.
In Finland, we have a focus on futurism in the business.
Mm-hmm.
And in the social impact too. You mentioned about the social impact in Denmark, and I want to know how the main enterprises think in the social impact and what they do to bring a good social impact for the society.
With social impact, what do you mean? Like what the companies does for the society?
Yes, and how the quality of the employee journey and how the product works for the society too.
Yeah, so how that is in, for example, in Norway and Denmark, how the social impact is.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, of course, there can be like a danger that you educate people that in a degree that they don't really want to have, like if someone studies something they don't really like. But I think in general, it's people develop a general skill to do research, develop skill sets, and probably most of the people, many won't probably work in that area when they finish, like maybe they work in other area that they studied, so they develop a general skill set. And I think that's something, yeah, you bring out some impact there in the society by having this skill set. And then also you're meeting you're making friends, you have a network during your studies. It's important. And then like in Norway, I think also Denmark, there are not so many universities, like only 2-3. It's not so big countries here. It's just like 5 million people living in each country. So it's focused around some big universities, most of the activity. And most of the companies want to hire students from those big universities, so that makes them more popular, so they're attractive.
I have a question about the network. You work in a lot of countries around the world and in Brazil. How do a good global network?
How to maintain a good global network?
Yes, how to start and then start how to maintain this.
Yeah, I think it happens kind of natural, like if you go to university or something, or you work in a place you have colleagues, so you're getting new friends, then you can go to meetups. Or I used to go, when I was in the US at Harvard, I used to go to MIT. They had like a kind of met in a bar like every second week. So we had some beers and talked and made some friends there. It's one way. And the other thing, yeah, you have LinkedIn, Twitter, you have like, you can make friends without being like physically close. Like that's one way. I think nowadays, like trying to maintain most of the friendships like these other forums like LinkedIn or WhatsApp and these things.
I have other question about this of the global network. Tarjei, do you have some tips of how to understand the other culture to do a good negotiation with a stakeholder?
First, I guess you need to read like a little bit up on what's the basics of the culture, and for sure you need to avoid what makes them irritated. You don't want to upset your counterparty. So, I mean, you find these things, just Google search or whatever, like you can find a lot there. And then of course you can probably do some extra training, and then you want to make them happy, know what makes them happy. So you have to adjust to the conditions. You don't want to upset your counterparty, and it's very culturally dependent. It's difficult to generalize, I think.
That's actually great. You know, you who was watching, you the audience, remember this: don't upset the one you try to negotiate. That's a basic tip for everything. Thank you.
Make them happy. It's like
make them.
I think like in negotiation, it's a little bit give and take. You need to meet somewhere in halfway.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tarjei, you talked a lot about the digital footprint that you said when you're having a career, right? You're trying to boost your career. So you talked about LinkedIn, Twitter, and just having friends and network. Am I right? A good network.
Exactly.
Exactly. And I'd like to know, do you have any advice to entrepreneurs how to boost or how to make a better career in COVID times? Because there's no much presential reunions or meetings, and now you have to do everything online. So any kind of tips or advice, or networks that can help people to make those bigger networks global networks?
I think if they see some interesting article or research, maybe they can reach out to the people that have written those things. They can put up some questions, establish some kind of relationship, like see if they respond, and then maybe make some contact, and then you can later go on LinkedIn and maybe connect there. That's one way. So I think like being curious about other people will easily make you more popular, and you can connect on LinkedIn. That's one way. Then I guess you can participate in different webinars, those things, to learn new skills. That's what I would recommend. I think those are the most important for me.
Tarjei, what do you suggest to young leaders that want to do a global career?
How to do a global career, or why?
Yes. So what do to start a global career, like you, to work in a lot of different countries?
I think it's a little bit difficult to plan. Sometimes it doesn't happen like a plan, because it also depends on the company you're working for. So if it's a big multinational company, maybe it's easier. If you start in Brazil for like an international company, like, I don't know, IBM or Cargill or something that's operating in Brazil, maybe you have the opportunity to work abroad. Then you can ask to get like overseas work experience. So that's one way to start it. Then another way is to study abroad or do like an exchange semester, establish a network there, and maybe apply for work when you're there outside to work for a foreign company. So that's some ways to get started. Then of course, after the first few jobs, a lot depends on your career and what's happened, what kind of roles you're offered, what kind of opportunities you see. But I think you can do a lot to apply for jobs where you want to work, like the cities or the companies you want to work. You can try. You don't have anything to lose except sending applications. So just take some time to write the application. So, and I'd probably also say it's useful sometimes to interview with many companies to learn about the interview process, to develop those skills. It's like negotiation skills and marketing yourself. It's kind of what you need to do.
And in your opinion, Tarjei, the university influencing the global career or not?
I think some countries probably influence. I know, like for example, in Norway, there are both companies and the government offers stipends for students to study abroad. So they get extra money because it can be expensive to study at like Harvard or MIT. So you get extra money. They basically pay your education there. So I think there's opportunities in those countries, but I don't know how it is in Brazil. It's probably less funding from the government and the private companies. So you have to apply directly from the university to get that opportunity.
Absolutely. And now, Tarjei, I'd like to know a little bit of your experience, like when you're doing research because you have a PhD, am I right? Yeah. And meeting new people and talking to new people and building your own network. For us, the ones who are beginning, who are in the middle of college, who are aiming to a great career, what are the main languages, foreign languages we need to know?
Yeah. Of course, English, that's obvious, that's number one. And then I think like Spanish or Portuguese is pretty good. It's large languages. Then, yeah, of course, you can learn more specialized like German or some other languages. It really depends on the company or the country you're working in. So I think for me, I managed most of the time with English, even though I could speak some of the local language, but to avoid misunderstanding, you need to be pretty precise. Even here in Denmark, I can understand Danish. I think they can understand Norwegian, but we speak English most of the time because we want to avoid misunderstanding. We speak a lot of professional language. But outside, the most important is probably outside work, where you want to make friends and go to supermarket, those things. There, it's good to know the local language. I think it's more for your social life. Outside work, it's good to have those language skills. But I think you can manage a long way just with English in professional career.
Do you believe that the Chinese language now is becoming more important?
Yeah, that's a good point. I forgot about that. That's probably like something we all could read up on. Yeah.
Tarjei, in Brazil, we have a lot of division of the market and the researchers. Normally, and usually the researchers stay in the university just. They, in many cases, don't go to the market or don't stay in the booths.
Yeah.
And how does it in Europe and how does it in Denmark and Norwegian?
Yeah, I think it's pretty similar in Europe. When you do like a PhD, there's some people that want to have a plan to go into university research career and they stay there. So maybe like, I don't know, 20-25% stay there. The rest, they want to go out to the industry, and many like engineering, it's applied. So it's basically you're learning a skill where you can go out to do in the business. So it's not so theoretical, super theoretical. So then it's fairly easy to get a job in the business life. So I think it's pretty much up to each person what they want to do in their career.
And why do you do your PhD research, and what is about?
PhD was about the electricity markets and the risks there. So it's pretty much what I'm working on nowadays. I've been working most of my career, so it was pretty relevant. So it's like, basically, I've been working with the things I did in my PhD since I finished it. So it was really useful. It's not only like doing theoretical things.
Great. It's actually a great thing to work with what you actually studied about. Am I right? And I'd like to know do you invest in stock markets and such?
Yes, I do some investing, yes.
Yes, and do you have any tips for anyone who's starting to invest? Especially nowadays in COVID times when everyone is trying to invest and trying to learn.
I think maybe investing in the Brazilian stock market is pretty good nowadays because it's fairly low. It's very low compared to other markets. But my advice, like as a regular person or student, is to invest a little bit every month, not like a big amount at one time, because you never know if the market goes down. You can lose money if it continues to go down. It's a bit uncertain now, the future with the COVID. And then we'll be investing in like index fund, like just like S&P in the US or Bovespa in Brazil, these things. And I think I would focus, as I said, more on these companies with ESG, these environmental, social, and governmental companies. Those be my interesting companies to invest in. It could be solar or wind or whatever.
Tarjei, in the economic issues, what do you think about the Brazilian economy? And what do you think we Brazilians can learn with the European economy to put the technology and innovation in our market?
Yeah, I guess the Brazilian politics is a bit chaotic sometimes, and it's Bolsonaro is a little bit like Trump. Is not so popular, so and he put people's life at risk with not being careful. So I think we have, but I see one main difference, like in Europe, the countries are much more wealthy, like especially now during COVID, they can pay people to stay home. In Brazil, they can't afford it. They want to open to get the economy going. So you don't have the strong economy yet, but you have a lot of natural resources. You can develop all these natural resources and maybe distribute it more among people. So it's like more money goes to everyone rather than some become very wealthy. I think they can learn a little bit from Europe in that way, that we are a bit more social democratic in Europe. The government try to support everyone, take care of everyone.
And I have a question about the European natural researches focused on Denmark and in Norway.
Yep.
What these main natural researches impacts in the technology and the innovation? Because in Brazil, we have a lot of natural resources that don't be used in the technology and in the innovation. And how is there?
Yeah, here, as I said, in Denmark, the main natural resource, I guess it's the wind power is a big natural resource. They put a lot of research developing these wind turbines, those things. So that's been researched to universities, companies, etc. And then in Norway, as I said before, that's been put a lot of money to develop the energy industry. So and they also measure the effectiveness of the program. How is this going? Like, how much benefit did we get out of this research? It's not only putting money on without measuring the benefit. So I think that could be useful, like as a start.
Okay, great. And Tarjei, you talked about us flourishing our natural resources. Let me see. Researchers, am I right?
Yeah, researchers. Yeah. So you have a lot of, it's a very big country, Brazil. You have everything like agricultural products. I think those are going to be very high demand in the future. So I guess one thing Brazil can benefit from is you don't have the good infrastructure in Brazil. Like you don't have railways, much railways. Like so everything is on the road a lot. So you would benefit, like if you develop the infrastructure in Brazil, you can sell much more of your agricultural products, all this. And then you're also developing oil and gas there outside in the sea in Brazil. So you have another natural resource coming up. And then, as I mentioned, like all these renewables, there's a huge potential in Brazil to develop those. So then you get cheap energy. So then you can develop industry where you use this energy nearby.
And I went another question about the energy.
Yeah.
In Brazil, we have the start of the solar energy. What do you suggest the government can do to improve this energy? Because it's a clear energy.
Yeah. So in Europe, they gave subsidies. Like Germany, they paid companies to invest in solar cells, but nowadays it's so cheap, the technology, so you don't really need it to invest in such power plant. And then the other thing we have in Europe, we have a price on emission. So like when a power plant generates energy or electricity, it emits carbon dioxide. So in Europe, there's like a contract or financial instrument. So you need to pay when you emit this carbon dioxide. So it costs companies money to be polluting. So I think that's something like that could be useful to introduce in Brazil to incentivize companies to pollute less. But of course, for the power sector in Brazil, it's probably not so useful because you have a lot of clean energy already, but it could be other sectors where you pollute a lot. Transport sector, but I also know you have bioethanol, these things in Brazil too, sugarcane.
Well, Tarjei, thank you so much for all your insights and your knowledge over, first of all, we were thinking about more of a business and young leader stuff, but then you brought such wiser knowledge about marketing and about the energy in Brazil and how we can improve it. And us as researchers, right, Fernando? We're both undergraduates and we're going to be researchers, and we absolutely want to give Brazil a better future because it's really chaotic. You've seen it. And that was the time we had for today. Thank you so much again for accepting our invitation, our interview. I love the interview, the way that you brought every type of tips and every type of advice and every type of your knowledge over the global, the culture, and the way that society works. That was very a rich moment and a rich interview. Fernando, would you like to say anything?
Yes, thank you, Tarjei. I love to know more about Norway and Denmark. It's so great to know how these markets work in energy and in other sectors that in Brazil we went and we need to improve.
Yeah.
And thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, for you who just tuned in or who are watching this whole time, please check out our Vortex channel. Here we have a lot of episodes about even Israel, from everyone around the world. We have in Portuguese, in Espanol, and in English. So you can, check everything out and, learn everything new on your day. And that's it. Thank you so much for the audience for tuning in. Thank you so much again, Tarjei, for accepting our invitation. Thank you so much, Fernando, to be here with us. And that's it. I hope you have a great day as well. And we see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.